Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Melissa and I'm here on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday, and I talk about true crime, and I also do a little different topics now and then. For the month of February, I am actually doing two videos. One is my regular videos and my other one is going to be about celebrating the Black History Month. So if you like any of that, go ahead and subscribe and also hit the notification so you can be notified every time I post. Before we get started on the video, let me start with my inspiration of the day. If you ever ask me how many times you have crossed my mind, I would say once, because you came and never left. So today I'm doing another unsolved case. So let's go ahead and get started with that case. All right. So this case is about two sisters, and this case, when I first researched it and heard about it, it broke my heart. And in one of those cases that I'm like, what, why? And hopefully the family could get some answer. This case, y'all, is just, when y'all hear it, y'all understand why I'm so broken with this case. Our decades, the disappearance of Shelley and Kay Lon wasn't just an enduring mystery. It was an unhealed relational trauma. On a March day in 1975, the sisters' daughters, a well-known Washington radio personality, had gone to Western Plaza, a suburban Maryland shopping mall, on an innocent outing, and they vanished. They were never seen again. Though the hunt for them was relentless and expensive, police interviewed countless witnesses and followed hundreds of tips. Every day, every stand of wood or weeds was searched. Storm sewers were explored, as was every vacant house for miles. The residents of the nearly nursing home were interviewed one by one. Scrub drivers groped through mud at the bottoms of the ponds. Nothing was found. Nothing came of anything. Police did. I was a green 23-year-old reporter with the Baltimore News America when this story broke. My job was to show up in the newsrooms at 4 a.m. and the phone every police breaks in the state, asking whether anything interesting had happened overnight. On the morning of March 26th, this officer in Washington told me about the missing children. I drove directly to the scene. This was a story that was sure to attract attention. Millions of families in the region lived in neighborhoods just like the Lyons in Kingston, Massachusetts, showing their kids out the door in the morning and catching up with them at mile times, in concern about where they went. A story like this stuck the stubborn's idea of itself. My first story ran 2 days after the girls vanished under the headline "Hundreds Searching Woods for Two Missing Girls." It had photos of the 12-year-old Shelley in blonde pigtails and glasses, and a 10-year-old Kate with her blonde hair cut in a cut bob. As days passed with no good news, the tale turned greener. In my newspaper, the story was still on the front page at the end of the week. Hope fed in search for the girls. But time has nothing happened. The story moved off to the front page and then out of the news, completely overtaken by fresh outrage. As the decades passed, I wrote thousands more stories, big ones and small ones. I raised 5 children of my own. I became a grandfather of 2 little blonde-haired girls. As a matter of fact, to me, the Ellen story was sad and beyond understanding. Few hunted me as this one did. While today we can all too readily imagine the disappearance of a child in 1975, it was shocking. And all the more so because it was 2 children. Imagining how or why it happened was difficult. The problem of controlling 2 alarmed children suggests more than one kidnapper, which raised the question: why? What would motivate 2 people or a group, a sex trafficking ring, a circle of pedophilias, just speculating about the conjure scenario that made you ashamed to be human? The case haunted the Montgomery County Police Department too. It was a pitiable in department's shoes. Generations of detectives had come and gone, and many had taken a crack at it. Particularly, any new team would start over, combining through the many boxes of the yellow evidence hoping to find something missing. This is what cold case teams do. They embrace the tedium. They are the terms of last stones, liberating in the landscape beyond hope. But just as the most resting team was preparing to give up, a ray of hope emerged. Detective Chris Harmer stumbled upon a file he had never seen before. This 6-page transcript of a statement by an 18-year-old named Loyal Lee Belcher. On April 1st, 1975, Belcher, a long heritage differed from a drug and alcohol problems, had connected Montgomery County Police to say that he had the witness of the Lyon Sisters' abduction. Office had dismissed his elaborated, overly detailed account as a lie, an attempt to insert Sherman himself into the story, play the hero, and collect the reward. But nearly 40 years later, the cold case squad wondered if he really had seen something. At the end of the statement, he had said that the kidnapper walked with a limp, as they did, as did the men the detectives at the time considered their top suspect. They found Welcher in Delaware at the tail end of 33-year prison term for molesting a 10-year-old girl. In fact, further pinpointed their innocence. On October 16, 2013, Detective Davis traveled with Homework and Montgomery Deputy State Attorney Pete Feeney to Dover, Delaware, to interview Welch, who stunned Dave with the first word out of his mouth. "I knew why you're here," he said with a slight grin. "You're here about the two missing kids." Lloyd was nothing at Lloyd was nothing at all like the resident man FBI analyst had led the detective to expect. He appeared to enjoy talking for his own sake, and even though he knew David was working on the low case, he seemed different to the risk. He talked like a man addicted to talk. Free associate and David, who had worried about how to get him going, just sat back and listened. In the first session, Lloyd denied any involvement with Lynn, the girl's disappearance. "I didn't kill anybody," he told Dave. "I didn't rape nobody. I didn't do nothing to those girls. I mean, really, don't have much to tell." But he went on talking after a full day of interrogation. He slipped something that caught the detective's attention. The squad had been working on the supposition that Lloyd had witnessed a possible assistant in the girl's adoption by a pedophile named Ray Melistic. Wrapping up the session, David made a final stab at getting Lloyd to reveal something. "All right, I think you are we're pretty much done," he said. But what I want to ask your opinion only. What do you think Mexico did to those girls?" "Personally," Lloyd asked. "Yeah, I'm asking for your opinion." "Well, my opinion is that he killed them, raped them, killed them, and he probably burned them. I don't know." In the adjacent room, Chris and Pete looked at each other. "Who says burnt them?" asked Pete. Subsequent session with Davis and Hartmark, and later also Detective Katie Liggett and Mark Jenny Welsh laid, elaborated, and repeatedly about his connection to Lyon case. He eventually admitted that he had helped kidnap the girls, but insisted that the crime had been planned and carried out by others in his family. First naming a cousin, then an uncle, then his father, who he said had abused him sexually as a child. In the summer of 2014, the squad began a sensitive purvey of the entire Welsh clan. What the detectives found shocked them. They claimed who had two branches, one in Hatfield and the other 5 hours southwest, on a scale lip top in the Accent Bay, a place that locals call Taylor Mountain. Here the family Appalachian roots were extended, and even though some members had gratefully moved into the modern communities and around Belfort, the nearest town, while its inventors were markedly different. The branch in Maryland clear belonged to the same tree. The family mountains hollow ways, suspicious of outsiders, and unruly contempt for authorities of any kind, stubborn property, knee-jerk resorts to violence, set it purposely at odds with mistreatment, suffering. Most shocking were its sexual practice in sense was notorious in the families of the hollers of Appalachia, where its celebration and privatization erode social taboos. The practice came north with the family to Hansville here, where suburban families took children seriously. Some adults and lawyers immediately family exploited their offspring, ignored barriers to incest. It was not uncommon for Welcher children to experience sexually with siblings and cousins. If the Lyon sister had fallen into the sea pool, as the Lloyd claimed, and the detectives now suspect that some of the family may have known, even helped. At this point, Lawyer was claiming that the chief culprit had been his uncle Derek, who he said had planned the girls' kidnapping and then praised over their gang rape, murder, and dismembered Willie Flynn. Interclining Dick and Wells was nearly 70 but seems older. In addition to heart trouble, he faced a frightening area of accusation. Various family members had accused him of ugly and violent behavior towards them in the past. Dick denied it all. He said little, and what he did say was in simple consent and need. He behaved like someone wrongly accused, bewildered and frustrated by wondering falsehoods. He was summoned to appear before a grand jury on February 2015 when the prosecutor asked him whether he had involvement in the Lloyd case. Dick was 16 and firm. God as my witness, no. Did you transport one or other of these girls, Shelley and Kate Leon, from Welland Plaza to your residence? No, I did. I didn't. I have never been there. Did you have sexual contact with either Shelley or Kaylee Long? God as my witness? No. Do you have knowledge of any of these things that I have talked about? No, but I wish I did. He had earlier said that he wished he could help the detective solve the mystery. Do you have any explanation why people would say that you did it? I don't know why. I'm getting accused. Them saying I did this. I'm done. That I haven't. Pat, Dick's wife, would eventually be charged with organization family efforts to stonewall an investigation. Loyal cousin Teddy Welch, the first family member he named as the girl's kidnapper, through Teddy was only 11 in March 1975, had run off as a boy to live with the middle-aged man. The other cousin, Henry Parker, and his sister, Corny Parker Esker, still lived near the family homestead on Taylor Mountain. Both would have proved to be helpful if really sent witness to the stranger burning of the bloody duffel bag in a bonfire in Taylor's Mountain, delivered there by Lloyd. Each of these family members and many others told ugly stories of being either victims, witness to interfamily sexually assaulted. Guys, let me stop here. I'm so sorry. I forgot that this case had sexually assaulted and stuff like that. So I'm so sorry. I should have read it. I was reading it, but I should have read it more carefully. So I'm sorry if you don't like that. I do apologize. I did not. I should have put a warning at the beginning. Lloyd had emerged from this culture as both victim and predator. After years of wandering and imprisonment, he had started far from the family grip, but the particular values and behavior he had learned and endured had not played well in socially at large. By early 2015, the detective had formed a much fuller picture of Lloyd in 1975. They could look past the Willie Sharkle man who met them in the interview room and see teenager Lloyd lean, dirty, mean, and high. In original times, but this may have made him stand out. But in the late 1960s, many teenagers were growing their hair long, dressing shabbily, and frequently bathing and experimenting with drugs. For most, this period was Flynn, but for Lloyd, it was no pose. He really was poor, desperately dirty, and put for anything. By 1975, the hip movement had faded, but Lloyd hadn't changed. He was then part of the class of shaggy vagabonds, stumbling their way around the county and back roads, camping in the woods outside Serbia. Like Lloyd and his girlfriend, Helen, many were heavy drug users. They still proclaimed defending maidens of the hip movement. Free love, mind experiencing drugs, and all compulsing. If it feels good to do it, but if you had considered it was such a crater may mean to men like Lloyd Welcher. At 18, he was already in outlet standards on the fingers of prosecutors world beyond his gasps. Shopping malls then were in Shrewsbury cleaning short cases, lined with high-end stores stocked with goods Lowe could not afford. And while he was not the short to reflect on such things, he must have rested the plenitude, all the comfort of money, family, and community that he lacked, as the Lord himself had put it. I was angry person when I was young, and if he felt scorn or rage, had better to stick back than to stock that everything in the mall. Privileged customer most prices. The pretty little girls he saw there to whom he was perfectly attacked represented everything he was denied. May a man like these have adopted and killed the Lyon sister? Lloyd continued spinning on one story after the next to explain what had happened to Shelley and Kate, always placing the blame for the crime on others. But greatly often in individually, he revealed more and more about himself and the crime. The detectives came to realize that you had to forgive the negative. The way to read Lloyd was to look past his story to their details. Running through many of his visions were certain particulars that record stalking girls in the mall and offered to get high a station wagon, a carrying. Did you want to eat? No, right now. Sorry, guys, that was my mother-in-law. Carrying girls in the back seat, basement hangout access from the backyard, raped, drugged girls, a pool room, an ex. The girl chopped up and burned in army green duffel bag, a bonfire, as if in an ever charming bladder. These stubborn smuts kept suffering. The more they suffered, the more they begged to look true. On a Monday in May 2015, David Daves went looking for the place where Lloyd said Dick had killed and dismembered Kate before stuffing her remains in a duffel bag, and ordering Lloyd to take it to the Tyler Mountain and burn it. It was an escalated spot under a bridge near his uncle's old home in Huntsville. Dick went there to fish and drink and smoke. It was his comfort area. Lloyd was 90% sure about it. Dick's old house had been races to make room for a new district court building, but Dave knew where he had been and he wanted there first. Right away, Laura's story didn't add up. The house was the last place you would choose to bring two girls who were the object of big county manhunt even back in the 70s. Before they knew courthouse, the address had been in stone throw from the city's police headquarters. There were officers coming and going all the time. Lord had said that they were railroad tracks behind the house, and that the bridge over the Arkansas River was a short distance from the front door. But the tracks were in front of the house, not behind. And across Rhode Island Avenue, the river, which was more like a creek, was not even close. The map showed it 4 blocks easy. Layout was nothing like Lloyd had described it. Dave next stopped in Massachusetts Street, which Lloyd had also mentioned, and where members of the flesh were family once. Guys, give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. The map. There was nothing like the ones Lloyd described. Dave next saw it on Mountain Street, which Lloyd also mentioned, and where members of the Welsh family had once lived. It was not far away from running southeast from Baltimore Avenue down the river base. Dave drove along that route to a dead end that looked down to the water. To the left was a rail bridge dangling across it. David claimed that the low fence and walked down to the water. This was clearly the place Lloyd had described, but it was no escalade heaven. The angel of the bridge exposed it to views from neighborhoods all around. With all the dealerships and parking lots in the vicinity, it would have been well lit at night. It was like being on stage in a theater in a room. Another Lloyd Welch curveball. David had begun to lose hope ever starting out when he had happened to the girls. But as they drove back up, Boschman started staring him right in the face across busy Baltimore Avenue was a house he recognized from snapshots in the field. It was a house where Lloyd's father, Lee, and his wife, Eden, had lived, 417 Baltimore Avenue, a two-story white clapboard duplex with pale blue trim and an uneven front porch. This was the address Lloyd had given where he made his original false statement. Lloyd had described seeing his uncle pull out the driveway with the Lyon Sister in his car, heading towards the river. This now made more sense. The location fit Lloyd's description perfectly once you saw that it was not his uncle's house, but his father. It struck Dave with the force of revelation, just as Lloyd always moved himself off center in his stories, so he had moved into this house. The detective pulled over, crosses Baltimore Avenue, and knocked on the door. A friendly Hispanic woman who spoke almost no English answered. Dave managed to make himself understood enough to say that he wanted to look at the basement. She showed him that there was no way to enter through the house. You had to go outside down the porch and along the driveway to the backyard, where steps led down in a padlocked door. In every scenario Lloyd had spun, there was in a basement hangout, a place where the girls had been kept. He had places first in Teddy's older friend's home, then his and his uncle Dick, but in both it was a room that could be entered only by walking around the house to the rear. Once Dave understood how Lloyd's mind worked, he knew without question this had to be the place. Dave jiggled the latch on the door open. He stepped into a dark, low-ceilinged stone dragon heaped with old furniture. It was so unhauntingly familiar it raised the fine hairs on the back of his neck. This was the place. He knew it. It was exactly where one would stash two stolen, fighting drug little girls. Two rooms completely cut off from the house above. You could do whatever you wished in the space without even being seen or heard. David returned to the next day with the forensics team. They cleared away some of the old furniture and started squirting Blue Star spray, a blood detection agent that bonds with even the slightest trace of hemoglobin gloss brighter under a blue light. The floors and walls of the outer room revealed nothing much. Then they cleared debris from the back room and spread some more. It lit up from floor to ceiling. It lit up like a murder scene. Someone or something had been slattered in this room, and the Dave knew. Oz uncertainly vanished. He was even more certain because he had not been led there by Lloyd. He had found himself. He had extended it from Lloyd's story bit by bit. A glow in blue light, the room announced itself as the place where Shelley and Kay Lloyd, lured from Walton Plaza, had been drugged, raped, imprisonment, and where at least one of them had been killed and dismembered. Before he had switched the location to the bridge, Lloyd had talked a lot about a basement hangout, his uncle Dick's Century, a place with the locked door where Dick went to smoke and drink. But it wasn't Dick's basement. It was the basement of Lee's house, where Lloyd has been living, the space where Lloyd hang out, smoke dope, drink, and party. It was his. Not long after Dave found the likely murder scene, the case against Lloyd was soiled enough to charge him with the crime. Whatever illusion he may have had about winning his long-running game with the Lloyd squad were dashed. On September 12, 2017, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felony murder in Bedford courtroom. Though he still denied that he had raped or killed his sister, his admission fell well within the confines of Virginia legal doctrine, undefined as murder is killing in the commission of abduction with intent to defile. He was indicted in the Commonwealth because the case against him was stronger there. His cousins having corroborated his final story of driving human remains as Taylor's Mountain. Lloyd had also served time, voices his fear of execution, so he was considered more likely to accept a guilty plea in Virginia. A death penalty stayed, a calculation that proved correct. The plea spared him from the death, but he would almost certainly never leave prison. His sentence was 48 years. He was 60 years old, and he had from first to last talked himself into this outcome. Although details about their faith, how Presley Lloyd had insisted the girls, and what happened to Shelley and who exactly was involved remain unsolved. Lloyd's plea the answer to my deepest question: who would commit such a crime, and why? But I wanted to meet Lloyd Welcher. I wanted to size him up for myself. I also wanted to close the book and the mystery that had been with me my entire professional life. I wrote him a letter requesting an interview and was surprised when he wrote back, immediately saying he would agree to be interviewed if, in his prison account, and met certain other terms. I would not meet any of them but offered to discuss them in person. Sitting directly across from Lloyd, left familiar, I had to watch him on video in the interview room for more than 70 hours. He looked thinner than I expected, with a pale pink complexion, and his watery, slate blue eyes were manifesting behind his glasses. He was critical but all business. If I was expecting to look evil in the eye, it was disappointing. What I found was an expensive, shaming man, capable of charm, but only to the extent that it was served his interests. Someone natively bright, but deeply ignored and cocky beyond all reasons. His discipline, his usual poor sense of situation, believing he had a lot more leverage over me than he did. The terms he repeated were ridiculous, but I heard him out. Then I asked the question I must want him to answer. Why did you keep talking to the detective? Lloyd said he had no choice. He said this repeated requests for a lawyer were ignored. Prison authorities told him that he had to continue meeting with the detectives. None of this was burdened out by the videos I had to watch. His participation throughout had appeared completely voluntary. David Davis had asked me to convey a message. I was to assure Lloyd that his prison account would never be empty if he revealed where the girls' bodies were. It wasn't officially offered, but the county police have spent millions on this investigation and still didn't have the answer. I have told them all I know, Lloyd insists. Just because a person pleads guilty to something doesn't mean that they're guilty of it. I did not murder or kidnap them girls. Who did? His uncle Drake was responsible. How do you think I would take two little girls out of the mall, kicking and screaming, he asked. Who would be able to do something like that? A man with uninformed? Dick had worked as a security guard. He didn't understand why Dick had not been charged, he said. He was afraid of his uncle, as he had been in 1975. While insistent on his innocence, Lloyd nevertheless seemed a little proud of whatever role he had played in the crime. I told him of many earlier coverage of the story, of all the years I had wondered about it. He noted that it had taken the county police almost 40 years to link him in the case. I bet it seems like the perfect crime did it, he busted. He complained about being treated as a rapist and child murder in prison. Someone he said may still put a skank in his back. Then he said he had enjoyed the interview session because they got him out of the prison. He got to eat something better than prison fare. That's one of the reasons I kept talking to them, he said, contradicting what he had said minutes earlier. He insisted that he had told the detective the truth. Throughout only sparingly, I was also trying to protect myself. By the end of our appointment hour, I was not strong reason to talk with him further. I had seen him invent and reinvent his version of the story so often that I saw no point in the inventing him to do the same with me. But when I wrote back to him a few days later to reject his deal, I added that if he changed his mind about the payment, he want to talk with me more, I'll come back and listen. I got another letter from him. Primarily, I received your letter, and I'm very disappointed in this. So let me say this to you so you can understand what I'm saying to you. First, the documentary you're doing, you may not use any pictures of me or Helen, and you may not use my name in any way at all. Now, as for your book, I do not give you any permission to use my me or any pictures of me or Helen anyway. You do not have my approval or authority to use anything about the Welsh name. You may not use any of the interview sessions that you have of me. He continues, sorry, we did not come to some kind of understanding. If you want to come see me, then you will have to put $300 on my commentary book before you can talk to me again. My time is money now. I noticed that despite his tunes, the price had dropped consistently. And that is the story of the sisters. And he did it. I'm sorry, he did it. I think he did it, and it sucks that it is. I think they say it's not solved because yeah, they caught the killer, but they still haven't found the girl's body. And for this man to sit there and, oh well, if you put this many amount, $300 on my book, then I'll let you know where the girls are. Like, what is wrong with people? You can't tell the family where the girl's body's at. But I understand because every serial killer and every person that I've searched for, there's killers out there that they won't tell the family because they want to keep that power. They want to keep that power. Yeah, I got caught, but you think I'm just going to tell you what this body's at? You got me messed up because I'm not telling you. I just hope that one day the family could find their body and give them a proper burial, and hopefully, bury their little girls like they're supposed to be buried, because they're somewhere. Who knows? I've done so many cases, but when it comes to cases of kids, it breaks my heart. It really does, because why? What do you get out of killing 2 girls? What do you get? What satisfaction are you getting out of it? No human should be treated like that, especially kids. And for someone like him that doesn't care. He doesn't care. He wants to keep talking. It breaks my heart, and I really hope that if the parents are still alive or any family member that are alive, I hope that y'all get justice real soon, because yeah, he's in prison, but I don't think it will ever be solved until they find the body, and I hope they find something soon. And I just pray for them. I pray for them. If anybody that was living in that area at that time, if y'all know something, if y'all know the family, please say something. Please call the detective and help them find these girls' body so the family can finally get closure. I will see y'all next time in the next video.